I'd like to thank heavy rotation contributors Asali Solomon, Clifford Chase, Stacey D'Erasmo, and Joshua Ferris for agreeing to participate in this reading and discussion. They're each going to talk about their essay and read a short excerpt.
Okay, so my essay is called Blues First Semester Abroad, and it's about the Gloria Estefan record Mi Tierra, which is her first Spanish language record. And you were talking about a love affair. Mine was sort of a grudging love affair with this record. I studied abroad during college in the Dominican Republic, and it was a very traumatic experience. During the whole time, I felt spurned by the country, and in not altogether a logical way, I decided to love the record that was playing the whole time that I was being spurned by the country. I hear it countless times before I hear it. At first, all music in Spanish, from the polyrhythms of salsa to the more straightforward tutu of merengue and the tinny melancholy of bachata, all sound the same to me. That is to say, like major key parade music coming from a forgotten radio. But music plays everywhere in the Dominican Republic, even in laced-up Santiago. And so in my alienation, I began to discriminate. First, I'm able to tell different songs apart, later different genres. Then I become aware of Gloria Estefan's voice. An instant later, it's ubiquitous, this record, her first in Spanish. It is playing in La Creperia, where I sometimes go to drown my blues in silvery sweet pina coladas, on the black stone beach at Barahona, in the Campo, where a dirt-poor farming family treats me like a real person. Occasionally it plays in the discos where I watch couples whirl and dip with savage precision. Finally, like a hostage who realizes she's fallen in love with one of her captors, I recognize that Mi Tierra, which is the embodiment of Estefan's rabid, crappy, anti-Castro politics and sounds like a big, corny pan-Latin musical, has infiltrated the stereo of my soul.
I wrote my essay on the Pearl Jam album called 10, which came out in the fall of 1991, and I absolutely fell in love with it. I guess this might be a recurring theme actually throughout the panel. I mean, it was a rapturous love. I have never, it was like a relationship love, like I had found the woman of my dreams. But by senior year, I was sick of buying what Sam Goody told me to buy. I had started to detect the musical conservatism that ruled Rolling Stone magazine. I loved Pink Floyd, but my fixation had settled on the unheralded, difficult material, the psychedelic masterwork, The Piper at the Gates of Dawn, the minimalist concept album, The Final Cut. A cassette of REM's Reckoning showed up in my car, I don't know from where, but I started choosing to play it over another spin of the Eagles' greatest hits. A friend of mine at school, whose outsider status was reinforced by his pinning a music zine called Puke and Guts, full of animated graphics of puke and guts and articles on metal and hardcore, turned me on to Faith No More's Introduce Yourself. Not exactly Minor Threat, but not Fields of Gold either. For most of high school, I'd been the ignoramus. Spoon-fed received wisdom, the ignoramus is culturally illiterate. He is sheltered and predictable. He takes his cues from the broadest of sources. He wouldn't know a decent album if the Jewel case came up and bit him on the ass. But then the ignoramus hears things, in my case REM, the Pixies, and some early punk, that sound unlike anything he's heard before. He's floored. The music hits him like a revelation. It changes his life. He gives no thought to those who would shake their heads with distaste at the weird new sound. He gets it. The discovery is major. His growing disgust with the status quo is finally explained. He can no longer be complacent with the mediocre. It doesn't matter how clangorous or marginal the sound is. In fact, the farther out of the mainstream, the more intensely attached he becomes. The ignoramus transitions into the initiate. Thank you.
The sensual world literally references a novel, Joyce's Ulysses, but it's also as if it somehow intuits the kind of dense emotional substrate that forms the core of a novel. On that record, form follows feeling rather than the other way around. I want a novel to be like that, to be that unguarded, that wayward, that distinctive. Love may have been the spur. I started really listening to the sensual world when I had fallen very deeply in love. Love may have been the spur, but it led me into a very different way of looking at things. I began to understand the value of being almost ridiculously impressionable. I wrote a book, then another. Of course, I had misunderstood her.
Peter, well, I chose the B-52s, and I'm grateful to Peter for asking me to write for this anthology, because I didn't really understand how important they were to me and are to me until I wrote this essay. I first heard their first album my senior year in college. Obviously a time of change from college to adulthood, and also I was still in the closet. I was thinking about that, my sexuality a lot, trying to figure that out. And I took my first fiction workshop that semester. So kind of a lot going on, and the B-52s was kind of a soundtrack for that. And I guess, like Stacey, I think, you know, it was a whole aesthetic that I was kind of glomming onto by listening to this album that kind of prefigured what my own aesthetic would be when I moved to New York and came out of the closet and became a writer. Describing a single B-52 song from start to finish would be like climbing inside a dream of my frustrated, secretive youth. Regarding my girlfriend Liz, I wrote in my journal, quote, "I want to kiss her, I want to touch her, but there are blocks, 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 obstacles," end quote. Quote, "Can I ever stop pressuring myself to feel certain things," unquote. Tinny 60s organ like some forgotten Morse code. "Remember," Cindy breathily confides, "when you held my hand." A succession of girl group fragments. She's stuck in a world of cliches seeking glamorous wisdom. I feel for Cindy. She's lost her man. The faint toy piano, generic scary movie insanity. At last the stock phrases give way to screams. "Why don't you dance with me? I'm not no Limburger." Comic but also kind of heartbreaking. She's only screaming like I wish I could. Fred chimes in now, the circus ringleader. "Dance this mess around." Whipping up the animals, egging on the dream. The guitar insists, and now Kate tells of parties at which she, also a miss, is danced around in various styles. Shy tuna, camel walk, hippie shake. I too knew the hippie shake. It could still be seen at parties at UC Santa Cruz circa 1980. I too a mess, though never so artfully described as by Kate's trumpety soprano, slightly raspy, almost screechy, singing the title sentence over and over in ever wilder melodies, as if in madness or abandon, while the others sing their yas, affirmation at last.
You go down to Hammond, you'll never come back. In my opinion, you're on the wrong track. We'll always love you, but that's not the point. If you go with that fella, whoa, forget about us. In my opinion, no, that would be just throwing yourself away, not even try.